Okay, welcome back. So, most of you went through this exercise fairly easily, but I think it's helpful to go over all the things that we could do and ways we could make this visualization aesthetically pleasing to meet all of our major areas and concerns and make a useful visualization for ourselves. So the first thing is, what do these numbers mean? So I gave you a chart full of numbers, and if these are on the stock exchange for Springfield, USA, one of the things we should probably do is denote that these shares are measured in dollars. And we can do that here in the tabular data. So I just like to highlight that square set, and if I just click on the dollar sign, we can put it in the accounting number format. Now, I want to eliminate the decimal points because I'm not dealing with fractions of decimal points. So another easy way to do it is just by, you can increase the decimal or you can decrease the decimal by just clicking on the arrow. 1, 2. And so here we're just using whole dollars, no cents. Okay, so now we know that it's in dollars. We have those numbers formatted as dollars. Another way of approaching this is if you were to highlight this text and right-click on it, you could format the cells. And here, you'll be given a number of possibilities. One simple way you could go to it is just write currency. And we'll write it like this. The 1, 2, 3, 4 with the symbol dollar sign. We don't want any decimal places, and click OK. And there we have actually a really pretty, much better visualization for how many dollars these stocks are worth at any given date. Okay, so now some other things we can do. Well, we have our data sorted, it's organized, it's clear, and we know we have no null values, right? So let's take a look and see what kind of chart we should use. So if I was to highlight all of this text and then simply go to Insert, and then I could go to Recommended Charts and see what comes up. And notice what's recommended here. And in this case, we have some choices. We have a number of choices. So we can use a bubble chart. So a bubble chart's kind of like a scatter plot. And in this case, the little bubbles increase in size and intensity with value. We could use a simple scatter plot like this. But notice that only works here. We have 2, Buzz Cola and Krusty Enterprises. We don't see Southern Cracker, the original employer of Milhouse Van Houten's dad, Kirk. So we want all 3 of these companies, which leaves us with these recommended charts. The column bars, right? And here's the column bars, so it gives you the value day by day by day. And here you've got them stacked, so as parts of a whole. You have the area chart, which can be helpful to see how they all stack up. And what we see is that overall, right here, right, Krusty Enterprises is certainly the most valuable of our stocks. Buzz Cola, a second place, and then unfortunately Southern Cracker just is really struggling. And we'll see some here as well. This line chart, however, gives us that nice point. So let's take a look at this line chart. So we know that it's okay to have a line chart that compares 1 to 3 values over time. And so what we see here for Krusty Enterprises is Krusty is really, he's much like Krusty the Clown. He's had some variations. But that looks different than the other chart we saw. So let's take a look at that. So all we have to do is go to Change Chart Type. And the other one was an area chart, so we would go down and select So area charts. We have a chance to look at area charts here. Now, when we see this, right, we have on 1/1/2000, what was Krusty Enterprises at? And that was 36. So what this is doing is you're taking it in slices. So here's the bottom slice. So here, $4 is right here. And then a Buzz Cola was 32. So if you add 4 plus 32, you get 36. So the 36, right, this is stacked. And then if you add another 36, which is what Krusty Enterprises is at, right? Here's where you end up. So the total value in this area chart is the combination of all three of these stocks, and each band shows us the price of the stock. Now, while it looks kind of cool with the saw teeth and everything else, what I don't get is I don't see a very clear comparison in some cases, right? That stacking isn't helping. So maybe this is not the best visualization in this case. So let's go back, and let's go back to our simple line chart. Okay, so we have a simple line chart. Okay, so is it pretty clear? Our dates are here, our time is here. We see some crossing over with lines, so that gets a little messy. Okay. So could we change some colors to make this a little more readable, easier on the eyes? Well, that's great. We have data points, so we always see what our points are. Notice how they cluster here? And that's not what we want. They run into each other. No. That looks kind of neat, a little easier on the eyes. But as you can see, the number data points are just too small. This gets better. What to do, oh, what to do. So we have a few options. So if we wanted to persevere with this line chart, would expanding this chart into a larger size on our screen make this easier to read? Well, yes, okay, but these numbers are still small. We still have these crossover points. So how do we know that they're occupying the same point here, and that's 23, but how do we deal with these numbers? Well, we have the opportunity to select one as a movable item and then drag it. And notice the little line that pops up. So that might be actually one of our better solutions here. So 39 is here. And so remember how we said don't accept defaults? And we got to manually go in and correct? Well, this might be the best way. There you go. 41, 35. So if we move that here, 35, okay. There we go. So let's pull this over. And notice that it can be a bit time consuming as you work through it. And it's understandable. So whenever you have a data project, understand that, part of the process is making something neat. Okay. So we have this visualization. We go through and make sure all of our numbers are clear. See? Do that all the way throughout, okay? So we have that. Okay, great. Now let's say we have that. Now we'll need a chart title. So what we'll say are share values, Springfield, USA stocks, from 1/1/2001 to 12/1/2001. Okay, so it's 2000 to 2001. So we have a chart title, we have that. Are there any explanatory things that we might put in? Well, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. What we might add is another text box. So if we go to Home, we can insert a text box here. Text box. And probably put it in right here. And just say, all values are in US dollars and in date intervals right are the first day of every month in 2000 to 2001. So that way we know that, just to remind our audience here, question is, could there be a better color than gray here? I think there could. This could really pop, and you could follow it much better maybe if it wasn't gray. So let's take a look at your line and your color. So the color here is gray. Now we need something that's not offensive to the eyes, but also something that will pop out. So the orange works, the blue works. How about something darker so that it's noticeable? How about a green? How would that work? So let me see if I can just select the line. So you just select the line and then select your color. This is a bigger segment. I'm not sure if this green is what I want, but let's give that a try on the whole line. Okay, so we've made this line green. I think it stands out a little better, but these numbers could certainly stand out better. So let me see about selecting our numbers and seeing if we can get something a little bolder. So instead of that lighter color, how about black? Maybe black shows up a little better on this. We'll do the same here. There we go. And the same here. Okay, so it's black. It stands out a little more. It's got the borders. Okay. Maybe this font could be a little bigger. And so could the rest. So let's take a look at font. I want to format shape. I want to format font. Font. And I want to say, maybe make this a little bigger, maybe 14. And font size, maybe bold. Try that. Okay. Now we can go back to the title and maybe do something similar. Font, and we want to make this, that's 14, let's make this 18. Bold, and we want to make that, say, black. There we go. So that stands out on the white a little better. It runs a little better. Okay, so we've got this. Okay, the visualization is okay. It's not the greatest, but it's okay. So now, if we were to save this as a picture that we wanted to upload, what you would do is go to the File menu to save, or actually you could just go like this. So right click, or on a Mac it's Apple click, Control click here, and save as picture. And so to save that as a picture, you would give it a name, and you could say Springfield Stocks. One PNG. Okay, and then if you were to save that, you could have that as your file. Okay, and that's saved. And it's a pretty sharp picture, the PNG format. So if we were to go to Desktop, Spring Stocks, and I was to open that up, here's what I would get. So this is not a bad, it's not the most horrible of visualizations. It's not the greatest. It's still a lot of movement on the lines, but it's readable, it's understandable. Is there a way we could do better? We're always trying to do better. So if you use the line, that's certainly a valid way, but maybe there's a way we could do better. So let's try making a new sheet and trying to work with this data again. We just want to copy it and paste it into sheet 2. So one of the things we noticed was that the area charts had some potential, but what was happening when we were using that recommended area chart is, you see how that value kept being added, and it required our readers to add it. What if we could use a different kind of area chart that would show them individually in a way that was useful? So if I was to switch or change my chart type, and I went to line and I'd find area here, well, suppose I tried to use like a 3D area where they all stacked up against each other like this. So I can see it, the points are clear, I can see the peaks and the valleys. The problem I have is, one, Krusty Enterprises is obscured through no fault of its own through this. So is there a simple way I could fix this and maybe keep this interesting visualization? Let me get rid of this for a moment. Well, suppose I was going to recognize that Krusty Enterprise is being dwarfed, and I knew that on the whole we had that problem. So if I were to cut and then paste, say cut, insert cut cells here. So changing the order and now trying it in my visualization. So now I insert, I have a recommended chart. And those are all okay, but I want to really go something different, not just what was recommended. And I think I have a better way. How about this? Notice our stacked bar here, our 3D area code, or our 3D area here, is different. Notice Krusty's no longer obscured, right? We have Buzz Cola in the back, Krusty in the middle, and Southern Cracker right here up front. So we get to also see how they're comparing to each other in a way where, you know, they're not running over each other. We get that clear division is visually appealing. The contrast is good enough. I might still want to pick a different color for this. So let's try to use the colors we've got. And let's see. How about a dark green? No, not the outline. I do this all the time. So also, by the way, if you're familiar with making data visualizations, get used to going back and hitting the undo and redo buttons quite a lot. It's okay. Everyone does it, and it's part of the process. So here I'll select my Buzz Cola. I'll go to Fill and click Color. Let's see how my dark green goes. I don't like that dark green. It doesn't. There. That might just work. Okay. So here I can trace. The next question is, on my chart, do I want data labels? Let's try. Okay. So I can add these. They don't quite stand out here. So what I may need to do here is in my text, my labels, there we go, color, black, try white. Notice how they pop out there on the blue field? So let's add our data labels here. Okay, black, maybe not the best of colors. Let's see if we can improve that by maybe going with white again. Notice how that gets jumbled up, so maybe black is better. And then here, if we go here and we add data labels, and there, what we want to go to is select our data labels. Okay, so we see that the data labels really weren't standing out, and what was happening is the data labels seem to be gravitating down here, all clustering around this low bar. And that's really not providing the kind of information we want. And so the question is there a way to make this stand out even more? Because there are moments, for example, that we know Krusty Enterprises is down here, and that's kind of obscured by this blue. So if we were to say, take a look at up here at some other visualizations that we can see here. I know this will change the color back. Don't worry about that for now. We'll see that. But notice here, we start to see some opacity, right? So we can actually see where those moments where Krusty might not be so obscured. So we see that there's some pretty close data points here. So we get to see that transparency, right? Okay, we see the 3 bars. I think we're getting better. I still don't like this color, so let's fix the color. And that's the fill. And we wanted that green color again. Okay, notice that it tinges this, but is there a better color that we can choose? Let's try. How about, instead of that blue, there's the gray. See, black is just not going to work. Or dark purple maybe. How about that? That doesn't quite work, does it? So we'll just keep playing with color. So this makes us kind of like the Bob Ross of data analysis, right? Just your own little world here. Just happy little chart. That's right. Whatever you think. Happy little charts. That gets a little better. Now, what we can also do on these edges is take a look here. We can also adjust this transparency. We could try to make this darker. You see how that stands out? So if I was to take this and then try making this dark here, and then this one maybe how about that? We see that contrast, we see they're similar. I don't like this, but we'll see. Okay, so we can also try some other things here. So we can take a look at this and say, what's this cap type look like? We've got the color activated. Okay, so we see these. How about making this the dark black? I think this stands out much better, even though this sort of overlaps. I think this is a much better visualization overall. Now, some other things we might want to do, if we double click on these, okay, so we double click on those, or we right click. We want to get out of this here. We want to format the chart area. And what we want here is our text options. And what I really want is just to change the data labels here. So we work on the axis. Labels. We want that next to the axis. Tick marks, axis options. One of the other things we can do is just try a home, and we'll see that we want maybe bold. Let's see if we can change our fonts here. Okay. So we want to try to increase the size of these and make them a little more visible. So I select the element, and then I just go to font. We'd probably want some sort of sans serif fonts because those show up better. So if we can find a sans serif font. Let's see. There was a PT Sans, I think, right here. Or Helvetica is another good one. Here we go. Helvetica. Now we want to increase the size, let's say to 12. Make that more readable. Maybe bold that. We could do the same here. Helvetica. Maybe 12 and see where that winds up. Oh, but see what happens. We obscure that. So we do Helvetica again and try 10. There we go. Okay, so we know what that order is. See if the bold works. Okay, it does. we want to go to the chart or this over here and kind of do the same. Let's go 12, we can. Bold, and maybe Helvetica. There we go. So we have a more usable chart here. I think we want to do the same to this, our legend. Helvetica and bold. Okay. Our chart title, we should right here. Okay, Springfield, USA stocks 2000 to 2001. All right. Priced in US dollars because it's Springfield, USA. We have the ability to compare them. Now it would be nice if we could just have a listing here. So do we need the access title? We do. We can title the access date. Right? Just click on it. And here on this axis, you can just write US dollars. And that's messy, so let's just undo that and write click in again, undo, and then just write in here US ARS. Okay, I think I made 3 L's there. Let's try again. US dollars. Okay. The other thing we might want to do here is notice how small these are on our access titles compared to other things. So we want to make sure our fonts are consistent. 12, Helvetica, bold. And the same here. 12 and Helvetica and bold. Okay, so we have our date, we have our US dollars marked, we have our chart, we see the comparison. You know what would be awesome is if we could still find a way to make some form of data labels work, so that way we know generally where the prices are at on each date. So if I take a look at and add my data labels, I want to move them up here to reflect. I started up here by adding the data labels, and so there's a way I can do it. So if you'll notice, I have a box. When I press or click on each data label number, I want to move it up to where it actually was on this date. And so one way I can do that is by extending this text box up, and we get it just over the line where it's at. And where we see these things, you see how I've highlighted them all? And what I want to do is actually align them to the top. So I can click it here. And notice how I have managed to place my dates to the top. So same with here. So for 28, that's not a great time, but I want to go to close to where it was. Okay. Same thing, same principle. And I keep going until I can make these clearly identifiable. There we go. This one point just does not go well there. So we'll put it here. The line. And now finally in this last data series we'll add the data labels here. Add data labels. And here we don't really have to adjust them, but what we can do is, because of the difficulty in reading them, we can go back to home, we can bold them, we can change the font, Helvetica and 12 and bold, and see how they stand out there. One of the other things we could try is also to make it a little easier. We could try to make the text make this text white. So what we have is now a visualization that gives us where things were at with each company. It gives us a relative way of comparing them on those different days. It's not the prettiest, but it will work. The question I have is, does this answer the question that we set out to answer? Okay, so this looks pretty good. It works well within Excel. So for example, if I want to look at a data point, and I look here, so let's say 1/1/2001, and I go here and I can hover it right over that data point. So Southern Cracker was at $17 a share on that date. I'm sorry, this is the 10/1. So $17 a share, $33 for Krusty Enterprises, and then up here it's $39 at Buzz Cola. So now if I save that as a picture and I wanted to share it as a static image, we have a problem. And that is, I have to take into context or take into consideration the fact that I'm not going to have that interactivity built into a static image. And while I like the contrast, these numbers are all jumbled and I can't figure out what's what. So maybe this isn't such a good visualization after all. So what do? Well, how about another approach? Suppose we were going to make a new attempt at a visualization and we copied this over. And what if, our original question asked us to be able to visualize, compare them against each other, and then know what they're worth on any given date. And we don't need just one visualization. In fact, sometimes it might be better to put some visualizations side by side to show how they were performing on those dates. And so one way of doing it might be this. So I have a full comparison, and I go to an insert, and I can insert my same kind of area chart that I had, my 3D area here. And I go like this, and I can still say, oh, you know what, I want to work with my opacity. I like that better. I can still see them, how they were compared to the others. To see all of them labeled, not just Southern Cracker. I don't know why it's doing this. Try undo. Because we originally had all labeled. And I go to Insert, "3D Area", and what I can also do here is, as I make this enlarged, there we go. We have the 3. And maybe I want to leave this for a moment, but I like that opacity, so, or the transparency, so we can see those hidden dips. So now we can call this comparison. So stock prices, Springfield, USA, 2000 to 2001 overall. And that will be our chart title. So that's our big deliverable there, our big picture. We can still do the same for the fonts, right? We make the Helvetica 12 and bold. Do the same here. Helvetica 12 and bold. And here. Okay, so we'll make this a little bigger here. There we go. Very good. So we have one visualization here showing, I don't want to move that part, I just want to move the chart. So suppose we were to make some other visualizations to go next to that. So it would almost be like we were making a rudimentary dashboard. So we could have this as the big picture. Right. And then, if we wanted to have those values, we could just list them. So how might we do that? So what I might want to do here is actually show a data table below. So I could go to here, where it says data table. I could say with legend keys. And here, I've got my data table. So in this, I can show the price points on the individual dates to compare, but also give the overall look in comparison. And then here, I can also upgrade my text to Helvetica 12-point font and bold. And here, I can label my axes, right? So, but we know this is US dollars and we know this is dates. So here we have a chart. Does it answer our central question? So the original requirement was to show the value of these stocks on these given dates and their fluctuations, right? Over time. So how they compare to each other and their fluctuations. I just want to go to home and see if I can change to a sans serif Helvetica and maybe a better, more readable font. Very good. And give us a little wider option here. Okay. There we go. So it's not the most beautiful, it's not super advanced, but it works. The question is, will this work as a static image? So if I save this as a picture and I call it Springfield Stocks Final, because I hope it's final. Let's see if this measures up. And I think we have a usable image. So it doesn't clutter the numbers so much here. We get to see the general comparison. Clearly Southern Cracker is, of the three Springfield companies, Southern Cracker is certainly the one that has the most challenges. Krusty is not far behind, and Buzz Cola is overall pretty strong. It's had some major dips, but overall pretty strong. And then if on any given day on the month I want to compare prices, I can. So I've answered my question, I've made the comparison, and I have a pretty clean visual that manages to show all the reliable data, or all the key data points. And that, my friends, is one way of making a simple visual using Microsoft Excel. It doesn't have to be that complicated. You don't necessarily need a Tableau all the time. But here's how you might use some of those principles to make your image. So I'm looking forward to seeing what images you came up with for this exercise.